In this video, we're going to take a look at solving quadratics by completing the square. So the idea here is, like we said, we just want to solve quadratic equations which can't be factorized, and the way we're going to do that is by completing the square. So there's two examples here that we'll work through together, and then on the next page there's two practice questions for you to have a go at. Now, the idea here is we just take our quadratic, such as we've got here, is equal to 0. So what we want to do is we want to complete the square on this left-hand side here, on our quadratic. So we need to get this into completed square form. This is something by now that we should hopefully be getting quite good at. So remember, we have the coefficient here of x, so this b value. So we're going to get x plus 3. We square this bracket. We subtract this value squared, so minus 9. And then we add on whatever's left over. So we've got plus 2 here. Okay. Now, it's important to note here that this part, this completed square, or will be in a moment in completed square form, is the exact same as this. Okay, so if this is equal to 0, then our completed square form will also be equal to 0. Okay, so we just simplify here. We get x plus 3 all squared, minus 9 plus 2, that gives me minus 7. And that's all equal to 0. Now what we want to do here is we want to solve this. So we're looking to find the value of x. So what I need to do now is rearrange and make x the subject. The first thing I'm going to do here then is balance this equation by adding 7 to both sides. And that's going to get rid of this minus 7 here. So we add 7 to both sides. So I get x plus 3 all squared. That's going to be equal to 7. Okay. Again, we just keep making x the subject here, or that's what we keep working towards. So the next thing I need to do is get rid of this square here. And to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to take the square root of both sides. Now, if I take the square root of the left-hand side here, because we're squaring something, if I take the square root, they just cancel. Okay, so I just get left with x plus 3. And that's going to be equal, and we need to be very, very careful here. This is going to be equal now to plus or minus the square root of 7. Okay, remember when you take the square root of a number, so let's just say I take the square root of 4, let's do that over here. Then most people would just say 2 here, but we can also have minus 2. Okay, because if we do minus 2 times minus 2, that would give us positive 4. Okay, so we do need to include the negative solution. And then last step here now, just to finish, is we need to subtract 3 off both sides. So x is equal to minus 3. So minus 3 plus or minus the square root of 7 there. Okay. And that's it. That's our solution. It's in its exact form. So when it says exact form, that just means keep the square root, the surds as they are. Don't do anything like changing this to a decimal or anything like that. And there we have it. So if you want to, you can write this as x equals minus 3 plus root 7 and then do another x equals minus 3 minus root 7. But that's overkill. You don't really need to do it. I'd just keep it like this. Okay. And there we have it. So that's our solution to the first example. And let's take a look at another example here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clear the screen just so we can see this without any issues. So again, we just want to solve this quadratic here. And the way we're going to do that is by completing the square. And again, it just largely follows the same method. So what we're going to do, we want to take our quadratic here and get it into completed square form. So again, we just have the coefficient here of x. So we're going to get x minus 2. We square this bracket and we subtract this value squared. So it's going to be minus 4. And then don't forget to include whatever's left over here, which is minus 1. And again, this expression here is equal to our quadratic. So this is equal to 0 as well. Simplify this. So I'm going to get x minus 2. So x minus 2 all squared. Minus 4 minus 1 to be minus 5. And that's equal to 0. So again, what we're going to do here, just like we did with the previous example, we want to make x a subject. So the first thing I'm going to do is add this 5 here to both sides, or balance the equation by adding 5 to both sides. So we get x minus 2 all squared. That's going to be equal now to 5 on the right hand side. The next thing we want to do now is get rid of this square here. So the opposite of squaring is to take the square root. So we square root both sides and I get left with x minus 2 on the left hand side. And on the right hand side here, again, just taking care, we get plus or minus. Okay, don't forget we need the minus solution or the negative solution or the square root of 5. And to finish here then, all we need to do is add 2 to both sides just to get x. So therefore, x is equal to 2 plus or minus the square root of 5. Okay. And there we have it, that's our solution. Again, our solutions are in exact form. We don't need to do anything more with it. And there we go, question done. So now it's your turn. So we've worked through a couple of practice questions or a couple of examples together. So pause the video here, have a quick go now at these two questions, and then we'll take a look in a moment at what you should have got. So hopefully you got on okay with these two practice questions. Let's take a look now at what you should have got. Again, all we've got here now is two quadratics. We need to complete the square and solve them. So if we start with this one here, just getting this now into completed square form. Again, should hopefully be nice and straightforward. All I do now is half this coefficient here. So we do minus 2 divided by 2 to get minus 1. So we're going to get x minus 1 all squared. We subtract this value squared, so that's minus 1, and then we also subtract 5. Okay, that's because we got this left over, and this will also be equal to 0. Simplifying here, we get x minus 1 all squared. Minus 1 minus 5 is minus 6, and that's equal to 0. Again, I sound like I'm repeating myself, but we just make x a subject here, so add 6 to both sides now to balance this equation. We get x minus 1 all squared is equal to 6. And now we take the square root of both sides. We get x minus 1 is equal to plus or minus, again, don't forget it's plus or minus, really important, the square root of 6. Okay. And finally, we just need to now add 1 to both sides just to get x on its own and make x a subject. So x equal to 1 plus or minus the square root of 6 there. Okay. And that's our solution to the first question. So moving on to the next one now. Again, we're just solving this quadratic here. Again, just get this now into completed square form. So dividing this coefficient here by 2, we get x minus 5. We square this bracket and we subtract this value squared. So minus 25, and then don't forget whatever's left over, so minus 1. Simplifying this now, we get x minus 5 all squared. Minus 25 minus 1, so that's minus 26. And this is equal to 0. So now we just want to make x a subject again. So we add 26 to both sides. I get x minus 5 all squared is equal to 26. And again, we just want to take the square root now of both sides. So you can see it's very mechanical in nature. You just keep working through these set processes almost. So you just keep going through the process. But I square root both sides. So I get x minus 5 is equal, again, to plus or minus the square root of 26. And finally, just to get x here then, we just add 5 to both sides. So x is equal to 5 plus or minus the square root of 26 there. Okay, again, our answers now are in exact form. We're happy with that, and that gives us our solution to the final question. So that brings us to the end of this video on solving quadratics by completing the square. In the next video, we're going to take a look at exam revision for completing the square.